Hello Pokemon fans who are interested in this one very specific topic. If you clicked on this video, it means two things. One, you really want to know which type combinations to keep an eye out for in Generation 10. And two, no, they will not be calling back. But that's okay, because there's plenty of Moxie boosted content here to keep you company. Throughout the past 9 generations of Pokemon, it's honestly been pretty surprising that they haven't quite reached the 171 possible type combinations, despite having seen 1,025 Pokemon in total. What we've come to see is that Game Freak doesn't seem to create Pokemon with the intent of getting a new type combination out there, as much as they seem to just create Pokemon and see which types fit them best in the end. This is why it took 8 generations to find a Pokemon that would appropriately fit the Electric Dark type. And no, Luxray shouldn't be an Electric Dark type. I will fight this point until my very last breath. Having spikes and red eyes does not make something evil or mischievous. That's literally just a lynx with X-ray vision. Oh, but he hunts in the dark, that's pretty evil. Okay, let's just slap the dark type on Noctowl while we're at it. Come on, man. Anyways, despite coming up on Generation 10 soon, there's still a total of 9 unused type combinations that Game Freak can dip into. What I want to do today is not only give an overview of the unused types and what they can bring to the game, but rank them based on how good those types would be in competitive play. And minor spoilers here, but the majority of these are normal type. Why? Because that's possibly the most boring type to slap onto anything else. And you could even hypothetically slap the normal type onto any animal Pokemon that's already just a single type. That's what they did to Pyroar for some reason. I'm still scratching my head at that. Anyways, this video is just more rank slop. Leave a like, subscribe, check out the Patreon, become a YouTube member. Begin. Normal Ice asks the question, what if we took the worst type in the game and made it worse? The Ice type is considered among the worst types in the game, only being contested by the Bug type. However, in most situations, the Ice type is considered superior offensively. The core issue we run into here is that adding the normal type, a type notorious for not hitting anything for super effective damage, brings the Ice type literally zero benefits, other than just hitting other Ice types for neutral damage, I guess. Like, among the 4 types that resist Ice, Normal is of course going to hit Water, Fire, and Ice for neutral damage, and having a boost to those normal attacks is beneficial, but this particular scenario is far less common than you'd imagine, and the Ice type would prefer to have basically any other type attached to it, because that type would at least hit other things for super effective damage. Defensively, things are just kinda worse overall, with one improved matchup. Normal types are weak to fighting and immune to Ghost. Giving the Ice type a Ghost immunity is fine and all, but it'd be far more beneficial to have the type combination remedy one of the Ice type's many weaknesses, rather than something that was only going to hit it for neutral damage anyways. And this being at the expense of making the Pokemon drop to a Mach Punch just doesn't seem worth it at all, to be honest. Even the Rock Ice type, which grants Pokemon much better offensive matchups, does something similar defensively, but doesn't see much use because it's weak to fighting moves and just isn't worth running. This type is an immediate F tier, since defensively it's only dragging the Ice type further down, and even on the best possible scenario of it going to an offensive Ice type, similar to Chien-Pao, it's not really gaining anything out of it. Though I should note, you do wall both of the Calyrex for some reason, so congrats on that one specific W. What we're going to see going forward with the rest of the normal type combinations is that it's very hit or miss, and more often than not, it's gonna be a miss. If the combined type wasn't already weak to Ghost, it's just not gonna help it at all. I guess with the exception of the bears. Like, okay, I guess if you're specifically created to spam 140 base power normal type moves, then yeah, you're gonna want to be a normal type, but that isn't the norm. Okay, we found a worse one already. That was really quick. The normal Rock type hits the exact same issues as the normal Ice type, only with less arguments in favor of it. Rock types are notorious for having several common weaknesses, and for their dual type combinations to only make them worse. For example, the normal type once again brings nothing to the table for the Rock type, only this time offensively it's doing even less. Rock is only resisted by Steel and Ground Pokemon. Normal just so happens to be resisted by Steel as well, meaning that the only benefit the normal type brings to the Rock type is being able to hit ground for neutral damage with the stab move. But even then, what Rock type that probably has Sturdy wants to click Double Edge, a recoil move? I'm not even joking, that's probably the only normal move a Rock type might click. Go ahead, try to think of another. Facade? Okay, let me just Flame Orb my Sturdy Pokemon. Hyper Voice? Dude, you're a Rock type, there's like 5 of them with a special attack stat. And even then, if you're a special attacker, you're hit with Curse of Power Gem, or Missing Meteor Beam. Get ready to be whelmed. Defensively, once again, we double down into being weak to fighting, in exchange for that Ghost immunity. But again, Ghost was only hitting Rock types for neutral damage. Is the trade really worth it in a game with Urshifu? Garganacl didn't even need to be a normal type to resist Ghost, he's just different. This is again an F tier, even lower than Rock and Ice. This channel is partnered with GamerSupps. If you want to support my work and get great tasting drinks, you can order GamerSupps through my link in the description down below or with code Moxie boosted at checkout for 10% off. GamerSupps is a caffeinated product that I recommend only to my 18+ viewers, but my link will send you to their caffeine-free product section just in case. Every product purchased through my link supports my channel financially, so I'd really appreciate the support. Now back to the video. Okay, this one isn't actually worse or even actively bad, but that doesn't mean it's all that great either. I'm sorry if this is getting repetitive, but we only have one more normal type combination to cover after this. The normal type brings nothing to the bug type other than that ghost immunity, which it really didn't need. This is in exchange for losing the fighting resistance. In my humble opinion, losing a resistance in exchange for an immunity is usually going to be better than doubling down into a weakness in exchange for an immunity. In the interests of both of our time and not saying the exact same thing I've said for the past 2 segments, we're just going to throw this one into D tier. It's just bug dark, but worse. Finally, something worth discussing. The normal steel type is a type which breaks my rule of trading that ×4 weakness for an immunity, and this is because the steel type is already weak to so few types in the game while resisting so many others. Steel types are weak to fighting, ground, and fire types while resisting normal, flying, rock, bug, steel, grass, psychic, ice, dragon, and fairy types. They're even immune to poison types, and all this is after losing that ghost resistance in Generation 6. By becoming a normal type as well, steel types can add an additional ghost immunity at the expense of a ×4 fighting weakness. This leaves only 3 types in the game that can hit it for neutral damage, which are the water, electric, and dark types. At that point, you're just stacking the deck in your favor. Out of the 18 types in the game, you end up with only 6 with a shot of dealing any kind of substantial damage, 10 that basically deal no damage, and 2 that literally can't hit you. This post has been fact-checked by real Unovan patriots. This is just a broken defensive typing. It doesn't matter that you can't really do anything offensively, you're just straight up giving an upgrade to the best single type in the game. That being said, I don't really believe that this is an S tier typing or even an A tier typing strictly because of how high the ceiling gets on ridiculous type combinations going forward. So it's going right into B tier. Now that we're through all the normal type combinations, I think it's time for a segment I'd like to call, What is a Normal Type? Okay, I'm here with my friend Saris, and we are going to try to figure out what exactly makes a normal type a normal type. Beyond very specific things, like Blissey from Gen 1, who was just a blob with no associated type. Like, that can be normal, right?
Yeah, it tracks.
I think what I'm trying to figure out is what makes something a normal type if it has a second type attached to it. So, like, Zoroark also might be the exception here.
It doesn't have an additional type that would make sense, and it's like, it feels like closer to the thing it's based off of than just like, it's a Pokemon, it's like, it's got stuff like that. I don't know why Zoroark would be normal, actually.
Yeah. What we did figure out so far that we think might be a rule is if a Pokemon is already a different type, it gets normal slapped onto it if it's a little too not creature-like to be just that type. Because, like, here's an example, right?
Yeah.
Here's an example, right? So if we look at, like, fire types, Torkoal is a pure fire type. And I think it's a pure fire type because it's got, like, smoke pluming out of it. Like, this is very clearly not an animal you could see in the wild. And most Pokemon aren't, right? But there are some Pokemon you could conceivably see as an animal in the wild.
Well, it's like that alongside the things like, yes, it's a turtle, but it's also, like, a stove.
Yeah.
It's that combinational factor where it's like, it's not just the animal itself.
Yeah, and then we have the Arbs. So Arboliva would prove my rule, and then Arbok would disprove it. Because Arboliva, we're going on this whole tangent. Like, why is Arboliva normal of all the grass types?
Yeah, this is the one that started this.
Vileplume is a plant,
for normal types,
but it's got feet. Zarina's a plant, but it's got feet. Breloom's a plant, but it's got feet. Also, it's not pure normal, or pure grass.
But yeah.
Blossom's a plant, but it's got feet. Go-Go is a plant, but it's... Go-Go breaks the rule too! That's just a goat! That's just a goat! Fire Fairy is actually a phenomenal type that hasn't yet been explored, and this might be for a good reason. The Fairy type is arguably the best single type in the game, with it hitting most types in the game for neutral damage and being super effective into fighting, dragon, and dark types. Fire is in a similar boat with it being a phenomenal offensive type. In fact, the only single type that can resist both of these types is Fire itself. So it's a very offensively sound type combination with very few drawbacks. What really puts it over the top is the fact that the fire type removes Fairy's weakness to steel Pokemon while threatening to hit them back with a super effective attack. The type remains weak to ground, rock, and water Pokemon, but its poison weakness is so uncommon in modern competitive settings that it's fairly negligible in most matches. An optimal Fire Fairy type would be a fast offensive special attacker similar to Flutter Mane, with its stab moves being able to deal solid damage to basically everything in the game and its weaknesses being easy to play around. Only really big downside here is the fact that it takes increased damage from Stealth Rocks in matches, making it a little bit weaker in singles matches if it doesn't have the heavy duty boots as an item, and a Pokemon like this would probably want to run like a Life Orb or Choice Specs. This one is easily an A tier typing. Okay, Ice Poison is kind of a mess of a type. It's pretty clearly a glass cannon of a type, since it hits for super effective damage into 5 types, but does manage to resist a decent number of other important ones, including Fairy, Grass, and Ice. But this type definitely isn't half bad offensively, with it being able to hit Flying, Grass, Fairy, Ground, and Dragon Pokemon all for super effective damage. The best way to think of this type is that if it's on a fast enough Pokemon, you've basically made a Poison type that can beat Landorus 6 days out of the week. Other than that, there's nothing really super notable about it, except, well, one thing. What do you mean we don't already have an Ice Poison type yet? Tell me one good reason, Sneasler, the ice climbing Pokemon with Poison Claws isn't an Ice type. I know color has nothing to do with it, but it's even blue. What kind of fighting type is blue? Okay, fair point, but give me another example. Okay. One more. Okay, that's kind of weird. Why are so many fighting type Pokemon blue? I just never really had that click in my mind. You know what, Sneasler? You do you, but the Ice Poison type is just a C tier. Everyone make way, hypothetical best type in the game coming through. Hey, you know that dude, Miraidon, giant purple robot dragon, absolutely broken, it's on the cover of the box. Okay, so imagine if that guy didn't get to play the game. The Ground Fairy type is offensively the most sound type you can find by far, with it hitting 8 of the 18 types in the game for super effective damage and everything else for neutral damage. In fact, the only type combinations that can stop it are Flying Steel, Flying Fire, and Flying Poison, of which there's actually a very limited number of these in the game. The reason for this is that the Fairy type is resisted only by Fire, Steel, and Poison types. All of these types get hit for super effective damage from ground moves. And the 2 types that resist ground, Bug and Grass, don't resist Fairy. Even if you were to run one of these flying type combinations on a Pokemon, it's pretty unlikely that you'd run more than one on a team due to their weakness to Stealth Rocks in singles and Rock Slide in doubles. So if that flying type isn't also Fire, Steel, or Poison, you have no resists. Effectively, you get 1 resist per team on most teams, if even that. You know, Game Freak gets a lot of slack for having favoritism towards Charizard, but if they were really doing that, they'd create a strong Ground Fairy type just to make it mandatory on most teams. Defensively, it's not bad either, as it's got a pretty even distribution of weaknesses and resists that includes 2 immunities to Electric and Dragon. Definitely the best type in the game if it were to exist, immediately going into S tier. I'm not even going to address the Mega Flygon in the room, it's just not worth it, it's never happening. We should just move on at this point. Bug Dragon is yet again a type that's hard to believe doesn't already exist since we literally have a giant dragonfly in the game. That's just a slam dunk, how have they not taken advantage of that? Anyways, this type isn't anything to write home about, as the Bug and Dragon types have very little synergy between them, other than the Dragon type causing Bug to no longer take super effective damage from fire moves. Or I guess you could say that the Bug type makes it so the Dragon type no longer resists fire moves, but I'm trying to make it sort of a glass half full situation. Beyond that, its resistances are pretty solid, with the type resisting a lot of the best offensive types in the game, including Electric, Fighting, Water, and Ground types, and that 4 times resist to Grass isn't half bad in the Rillaboom simulator that VGC has become as of late. Overall, nothing incredible, but it's passable. Right into C tier it goes. Okay, I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but this is yet another type I'm shocked we don't have yet. Spiritomb, Runerigus, Golurk, and hey, even Sableye could be rock ghost Pokemon, and yet they still haven't pulled the trigger. Which leaves me wondering, why would they hold off on creating one of these for so many years? I mean, conceptually, it's just a great offensive type, with it effectively just being a fake-out immune rock type that can click Rock Slide with impunity turn 1. This type, much like the Ground Fairy type, can hit every individual type for neutral or super effective damage, only the list of super effective targets is slightly smaller at only 6. That being said, it's not bad defensively either, despite being a rock type, with it being weak to ground, ghost, steel, water, dark, and grass. But it makes up for it with its resistances to flying, fire, bug, and poison, while having 2 immunities in normal and fighting. It's a pretty even deal. Obviously, whatever Pokemon gets this typing down the road would need to be an offensive Pokemon to make it work, But a huge issue with that is the fact that the Rock and Ghost types are sort of opposites in terms of what stat they want to use to attack. Ghosts would much rather use their special attack stat to be able to spam Shadow Ball, and Rock types would rather use their physical attack stats to spam Rock Slide or Stone Edge. That's because Power Gem is kind of an underwhelming move, and Poltergeist missing even once could lead to a game-ruining turn. Sort of a rough deal, but I think I'd take the Rock Slide and Poltergeist deal over Shadow Ball and Power Gem just for the huge damage output. It's just a solid B tier typing. With that, we have normal Ice and normal Rock in F tier, normal Bug in D tier, Ice Poison and Bug Dragon in C tier, Rock Ghost and normal Steel in B tier, Fire Fairy in A tier, and the Beast of a Typing Ground Fairy in S tier. But what do you think about my ranking, and which types would you like to see make it into the next game? Which Pokemon should have already been these types? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. It means the world to me. If you want to support me further, you can check out my Patreon page or become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button below the video. This gets you sneak peeks at future videos, bonus content, and access to my supporter-only Discord where you can hang out and team build with other community members. You also see your name at the end of my videos like all these lovely people. Special thanks to my most boosted supporters, Avatar67 and Lilith Ligant, for their generous pledges. Another way to support me is to check out all the videos on the playlist on screen right now. I know you'll find something in there that you'll enjoy. I also have a second channel where I talk about the current VGC metagame trends, and a Twitch channel where I stream, both of which are in the description. Or you can just tune into my YouTube live streams Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. CST. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.